Hello, welcome to our November Diverse Abilities Dialogues, Building Your Village. I'm Jenny Paxson. I am the Reader's Discovery Librarian here at the Webster Public Library. I also do all of our kind of disability programs here at the library. I do our Special Needs Parent Resource Fair, which will be April 19th of 2025, our third one. And we are continuing our diverse abilities dialogues with our partners here, Beth from Challenger Miracle Field, and Kim and Britt and Danielle from Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County. So I'm lucky to have them as our partners here at the library to do these great presentations. We do have a new flyer out for the upcoming events. We're going to do a lot of great programs, some kind of like repeated things, but I think it's necessary, like housing. We had a little bit of a discussion about that last August a little bit with our adults in transition kind of program. And it's an ongoing issue, so I think it's worth revisiting. So please, if you would like to pick up one of those flyers, and they'll be available in the library if you're not here today and you're watching this recording or on our YouTube Live right now, they'll be available for you to pick up. I'm, as I said, Jenny Paxson, and I have two children with disabilities. My son is 9 and has autism, and my daughter is 7 and has Down syndrome and autism. And so I've become very passionate about supporting the community with and helping them get the services and help that I have gotten through all the different organizations. And so that's sort of how we kind of met and started this program. And without further ado, we're going to start down the panel. And usually I ask my first question, and that is how you got involved in the disability community and what your organization does. So Beth, if you want to get started with that, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, my name is Beth Cunico. I am the director for Challenger Miracle Field. Like a lot of people I've met in the special needs community, I started out as a parent of someone with special needs, and then that kind of grows to becoming an advocate and becoming a volunteer, and it eventually led me into this position. I could not be more proud of the facility that we have here in Webster. Challenger is a year-round sports program for people of all ages with all abilities, and we have a fully accessible field just kind of right behind the library. We're really lucky that it's to have the dedicated facility here in Webster. And we just continue to try to grow our programming and support our village in that way. In addition to sports, we do social engagement type of activities throughout the year, Halloween party, prom, and a few other things here and there, again, trying to grow that and get volunteers. So yes, that's a little bit about how I got started and what Challenger does, and I'm really excited to talk about Build Your Village, because I think that's probably our strength and where we shine, and I think we have an amazing panel for that. So.
Awesome. My name is Lindsay Jewett. I am the Director of Mission Advancement for Best Ways International. I did not come into it as a parent, oddly enough. I came into it as a special education individual and being an advocate for my aunt who had Down syndrome. So Best Ways International has been in this area for about 8 or 9 years, and we basically go into school communities and make our kiddos that have diverse abilities feel more included in their communities, whether that's having them join the club or having them join student council or just being able to go out with their friends on the weekends. So that's what we do. In a nutshell, we do it from kindergarten all the way up through college and then adulthood as well. We also are starting to offer transitions programs, which I think you guys have talked about many a time. So we're also a provider for that for a lot of the school districts and for our community in general. The biggest thing I always think about when I think about this topic is how we build a community between our families that have kids with disabilities and the kids that do not have disabilities. And that is the biggest thing I have seen since I opened the office 8 years ago, is that's where the biggest divide is parents don't know how to work with other parents. And when a kiddo has a disability, they're not included in the same conversations that a kiddo that doesn't have disabilities is included in school, so their parents are included. PTSAs aren't always as welcoming to our families, so then the SEPTAs appear, but then there's a SEPTA and a PTA, are they working together? So we try to bridge those gaps. Also with employers, like many employers want to employ individuals with disabilities, they don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to build that network. So we're able to do that as well. So excited to be here. I don't think I've ever been to this panel, so that's exciting. And we're growing and we reach a lot of individuals, so it's cool to build that community a little bit more.
Great. I am Stacia Paganelli. I am a speech pathologist by trade and work privately as a feeding specialist right now through my private practice Help with Feeding. But I'm also on the board of Parenting Village, which is a nonprofit organization run by parents and really to support connections within the community. So for families of all abilities, basically, and really, especially post-COVID, trying to just bring people together as much as possible, providing parent supports and connection events. And so we have been primarily doing parent webinars, so kind of building on some of the resources in the community to bring knowledge, education, kind of take care of gaps that maybe parents have questions about speech services or sensory needs and things like that. So building some of that education in, as well as connection events. So we have teamed up with Parents Helping Parents to do a lot of those things, connection and parent webinars, as well as doing some support circles. And right now the sibling support circle is the one that has been going on. So kids with siblings who have special needs. It's a really great group that Kim can talk a little bit more about. But really working between those two kind of like those two jobs in my life to just be connecting people. So even through my private practice and with other private practitioners, always kind of like referring to others, building each family's village and encouraging them to seek the resources that they need. So that's definitely a passion of mine. Let's turn it over to you.
Hi. My name is Kim Dewar. I'm the Vice President of Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County. How did I get into this life? I was blessed with 4 children, and one has tremendous developmental and medical needs, and I just learned another one has some needs as well. So I got into the world of advocacy through the encouragement of our early intervention providers at the time, and being at the right table at the right time with 2 of my now best friends and other special needs moms to form Parents Helping Parents at the table of the children's agenda. And we established ourselves to support the parents of the 0 to 5 age group that struggles with accessing early intervention services, especially with the fact that funding
Ebbs and flows.
the lack of funding has provided provider shortages, which causes wait lists. So we wanted to hone in on that group of parents, but we have kind of grown to just accept all parents of kids with special needs because we know the journey doesn't stop at age 5, certainly. So we never will stop doing our local and state advocacy work for more funding for the early intervention program. But we decided a few years ago to just work on helping our local community right now, the here and now. And that's where our collaboration started, and we all have these wonderful organizations that work together to better our community. And Parenting Village, Step by Step, and ourselves started Parent Connection. So we put on in-person play dates every other month and then educational webinars every other month for families who are on a waiting list or not on a waiting list. Because as we know, even if you're not on a waiting list, you're certainly not getting the level of services you once did, even 5 years ago. The other thing we do is our state and local advocacy. Like I said, we've been to Albany a bunch of times. We sit in meetings. Whenever they ask for a parent's voice, we are like, we'll do it, or we'll find somebody that will do it. That's another thing, this wonderful collaboration with Challenger and the Webster Public Library to do these dialogues. We just kind of grow our collaborations, and I think that's what this Building Your Village is all about, and what all of the parents in the special needs community needs. The last thing I'll talk about is the sibling circle, because I personally run it through Parenting Village. I want to thank them for the opportunity to even start this group. We actually just had one last night. It's the first Tuesday night of every month, at Webster Rec Center from 5:30 to 7. And it's just a child-led social group, and these kids are amazing. They are fast friends because they just come from the same backgrounds. They don't even really have to talk about their lives to become connected. It's really a beautiful thing, and I wish more people could witness it, but just me. And I don't want to divulge any of their privacy, but it's just a very beautiful thing, and I'll leave it with that.
So, what are some of the tough questions that parents ask you, or what's your most common question that you get from parents who are just kind of seeking information or want that help?
I would say for us, it's difficult because through the K through 12 age range, we have to be approved by a school district. And so many of our school districts have similar programs that they think are working really well, and that's fine. There is finances that come into it. Our programs are always free to families and to the districts. And so a lot of families will come to us and want the program. I think many moms in here have been through that. Mandy's been through that with me. It takes a long time to get schools kind of bought in to what we're doing, because we just say to them, we're going to create a more social experience for kids with disabilities in your school and give them friendships. And that's a very illogical thing to a lot of school districts because it's not something tangible for them. They can't write a grant for that, or they can't tell the government that they're doing that. It doesn't look good for them on that side of the spectrum. So that's the hardest thing is when parents come to us. We've got districts right now that we are getting told no, and families are saying, but we want it, and we can't go into a school district without support. Right now, the way that Best Buddies is set up is there's not an ability to run a community-based program. We had it for a little bit, but there's not a way to do that until we get into our transition programs. We do have a new program that's starting within Best Buddies International that is birth to 3, and that is when a family gets a first diagnosis. We pair them up with a family that has gotten a similar diagnosis and has walked them through that journey. So something very similar to what everyone's already doing, but that would give us the space to work in communities more. But that's our biggest downfall is that we have to work at the mercy of the districts, or even when we get into a college-based program, the college has to approve it, and that sometimes I've seen colleges take 3 or 4 years to approve a program just to be on campus, and that's really a struggle for kids that want to be involved. Once you get into adulthood, that's a little bit easier because you're just trying to figure out schedules and coordinating, but the K through 12 is really difficult sometimes when we don't have the ability to go in a school district because we're being told no. Or if we want to do transitions in a school, transitions contracts that we talk about all day long, but once a school has a contract with a provider, they're kind of locked into that provider, and whether or not that provider is providing the level of service that a family wants, they're locked into that because it's a government regulation. So for us coming in new to the program, we don't have the ability to work with as many schools as we want to because of those contracts. So it just depends.
What school districts are you involved with? Sorry.
No, that's okay. A very large quadrant of the state. We're in about 50 schools. The districts that we are in include, I'm going to forget them, so I'll name some, but Webster District, Pittsford, we're in every building in Pittsford, West Arundecoy, middle and high school, Penfield, we're in all buildings as well. Webster, I think we're missing a couple of elementary schools, maybe. I don't know, maybe. We are missing a million of them, but some districts that are large districts like Greece, they just got their first school, and I've been running the office for 8 years, and I opened the office, so it took 8 years to get Greece to get one school. So it's a lot of work. And so by that time, that school's already, the kids are at graduated school at that point.
What are the schools' hesitancy to sign on?
A lack of understanding what we do, and they always are concerned with funding. So even though our services are free, generally a student or a teacher that's going to help us run it, so we need some sort of contact within the school to run it, so a parent can't help us run it. It has to be an employee of the district. They're concerned about their contracts and how much they're getting paid. So a lot of teachers want to do it for free. They're not able to do it for free through their contracts with their unions, and districts don't want to pay the $500 extra that they want to do to whatever it might be. I don't know what it is for every district, but that's usually the hesitancy. Now, full disclosure, some school districts, it's not a priority for them. I've gone into meetings with districts, and they said this is not a priority for us. And you say, okay. Or they say, we already have inclusion. We have unified sports. And those things are, what about the kid that doesn't want to play sports? What about the kid that cannot play sports because of their limitations? I'm a pretty good salesperson, but sometimes districts will shut down. There's districts I've fought with for years, and when I finally get them, it's like, whew, I did it. But then what happened in the last 5 years? Like, it took me 5 years to do that. So it does happen a lot, though. It's a lot of finances. Again, I think I came from the teaching background, so I know the restraints on staffing. And if I were asked at some of my lowest points of teaching, like, can you add one more thing? I'd probably be like, no, I can't do it. So I get that too. But again, a lot of it is just districts not understanding. Sorry, I'm
Does-
spoken.
No, you're fine. Does anybody else have like top questions that you get or?
I can comment on that. I think the tough questions that we get from parents is just the fact that they're on these waiting lists and they don't know what they don't know. So I do want to emphasize to anyone who's listening that at these play dates that we have, there are volunteer providers there from Step by Step, and they are there for you to ask questions. Sometimes parents come to these play dates and I feel like there might be some like shyness or they're not sure that they can ask one of the providers a question, but they are there for you. That is what they're there for, and it just shows how passionate they are that they're volunteering their time to be there. And Stacia is there almost every single time as well to either comment on speech or feeding or Parenting Village and how to connect them with other parents. So feel free to come to these play dates and ask your questions because you're not going to know the answer until you ask. And if you need help asking a question, come see me and I will hold your hand through it.
Well, and to-
Sometimes it's easier to ask a parent than a provider.
Oh, totally. My son has a variety of disabilities, and Stacia, my second son, also does. And Stacia, from like, I think 20 feet away, says, hey, you're doing that wrong, just so you know.
I mean, I
And
didn't
so,
say it
and
like
it's not just you, but I've gone to those play dates and like, you see your kid as you see your kid. You don't see all the other things that some providers walk in and saying, oh my God, they need PT right now. I just see my kid. I don't
Yeah.
see all those other things. I'm not a specialist, I don't know. So I think to your point, like, bring people into your conversation and be like, let him play, let him do whatever he wants to do, but, someone's gonna say to you, hey, you might wanna look into PT, or hey, you're using the wrong nipple on that bottle, that baby's drowning in his bottle. I was like, oh, okay, perfect, thank you. Carrying on with my day.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's one of those things, if you don't know what you don't know, to your whole
Sure.
point, and like, there's how many families do we all work with or deal with that have never had access to someone with a disability? They have most of us have experience coming into, I was a parent after having all my experiences, so I knew what to do. I knew what parents to reach out to. I knew what to do. I knew who to talk to. There's so many families that get a diagnosis and are dumbfounded.
Yeah.
My kiddo has Down syndrome. I don't even know what that means. What are you telling me here? Or it's their first baby and they don't understand feeding. So they're trying to feed their baby and they're doing the best that they can, but they have no idea that they're lip tied or tongue tied or
Right.
whatever it might be.
Or that they're supposed to have over 200 words by the age of 2.
Right, who knows that?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
Who knows that kind of stuff? So I think to your point, like, having a bunch of eyes on your kid sounds creepy, but it's not. It's people that understand, like, what your kiddo needs to be successful. And that's all we want for our kids, is to be successful in this situation. So,
and
sorry,
if
I'm
you,
gonna jump
and
in
if
on
you don't
that.
want to sit and talk to them, you could even say, do you mind putting eyes on my kid while
Yeah.
they're playing for a little while and just offer me some advice? I mean, it's as simple as that,
Yeah,
if you want it
just
to be.
to like echo what you said though, like the thing that I was gonna say that I hear that's a roadblock or that I guess is the most disturbing for me is when a parent doesn't know that we exist, right? And that's not just a challenger specific thing. That means that parent is not involved, doesn't know that there's all these services. And I
Yeah.
think the common thread I'm hearing too is that there's this gap that we're all trying to cover. It's not just about services for our special needs child. It's about the parent-to-parent relationships. It's about the sibling relationships. It's about integrating them into schools and about those parents that are new. I was that lost parent. And so I didn't know that a lot of this stuff was available. And I think that that's why I love this and why I love Challenger is that I keep saying, it's not on the website. It's when you show up. I met friends like Kim and Mandy, and that's how I knew that, like, okay, now that our needs are changing as my kids get older, I didn't know that there was a specialist for kids with special needs with OBGYN for my daughter when she gets old enough. I didn't know that.
Didn't know that
Until
right now.
6
Right.
months ago when Mandy
Didn't know
mentioned
that.
it or something. Maybe,
Right.
maybe even more recently than that. And so there's a lot of stuff that even we don't know, and I think that, you know, like you were saying, a new parent that doesn't, they don't know what they don't know.
I'm learning
And-
things right now sitting on this
Yes.
panel. I have
So-
never not learned something, sitting in the audience or sitting on this panel.
Well, even just,
Yeah.
there was an Avero training that you guys put on over this weekend, and I was fascinated, I'm taking a million notes like a lunatic, and 4 moms, I had mentioned it afterwards that that's where I was, and 4 different moms were like, I would have loved to go to that, I didn't know it existed, I didn't know what was
Correct,
happening.
Yeah.
Correct.
So like, just
So
spreading
the
those
most
types of
challenging
things.
question is not asking the question.
No.
Yeah,
Not
Just like-
knowing to
Yeah,
ask the
the-
question.
yeah.
It's like, I didn't, and
Outreach.
like, parents that like don't utilize services the proper way.
Yeah.
Or like, hello, like you should be doing all these different things and you can benefit from these services that you don't know they exist. And like, that's why I tell people, because I'm like, listen, I'm benefiting from this, you should be benefiting from this, and lack of time or energy or awareness shouldn't be the reason. And so that's been like the big thing recently is like, does everyone know what's going on? And if you don't know what's going on, how can I help you know what's going on? Because that's what's helped me completely. I completely agree with that. Like, there are things, Ron, I don't know the answer to. I know exactly what moms to call. And I always say I was a dance instructor for a long time. I was a special education instructor for a long time. I worked at Best Buddies for a long time. The only reason I'm a successful mom of a kiddo with disabilities is because of those moms. That's the only, I say that every single time someone asks me, well, you're really good at this. Like, you know how to navigate things. Well, yeah, because I had a village of parents that I'm like, I need to know how to do this now. How many times did I call Mandy when I had a feeding tube issue? Like, it's one of those things where I don't know how you survive without those things and how you become successful. My kid is doing fabulous. It's not just because of me. It's because of every service, every person I've reached out to, be like, hey, what do you think? What do I need to do here? And that's the biggest thing I think for all of us is that we're successful because our kids are successful because we knew or know what to do. I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I was thinking too, I have the honor of meeting families really early on, sometimes in the first few months of life, and just even in the work that I do across the board, one of the things that I think is hardest for parents is to learn how to have their voice heard. So, right, you go to your pediatrician appointments and you check off, milestones, and even sometimes you check off that there aren't milestones being met, and your concerns aren't always listened to. And pediatricians are wonderful, and they do a great job taking care of all our families, but there's just not enough time. And so, that can go on for months and months, and so that's also kind of, it might kind of lead into like confirmation bias, like it's your kid, you don't want to think there is something wrong, and if it's not flagged at the well visit, you're like, okay, we're okay. And then you start to realize that things are not okay. And so, at my office, we do these like play groups, and so it's meant to just be early play groups for parents and babies, like under the age of 3, to come together to play, to ask all their questions. And so it's for any kids with any delays or no delays. And so, and always there's this element of, I've been thinking that something is wrong and nobody seems to be listening. So like, how do we boost those parents up? And my colleague, Kristen Berkholz, who also does private speech therapy, she and I, it's like the conversation we have daily about how we support parents. And like, I just spoke to a parent of a 9-year-old this morning who needs support with feeding. And I had a, 15, 20-minute conversation on how, like, giving her all these resources. I may not be the right person, but this is what I think you need to do. And I said the exact thing to her. You need to build a village. Like, this is complicated. You need people from all different kind of like specialties to be listening to your concerns and moving forward with you and your son. So that to me is like the best part of my job, when I can help a parent learn to be like that mama bear, daddy bear, kind of like, I'm going to keep pushing to get my concerns validated and addressed, because right, if they can't have that validation, it's even harder to teach that to your own child to then advocate for their needs. So that I think is so important. And again, early on, I think, I feel like I can kind of help grow those parents. I love the babies and everything, but working with the parents and seeing them kind of shift into this totally different mode is great. And then to like be able to connect them to everybody, like they just, again, usually don't know what's out there and have like misunderstandings of services and who should access them, and just really boosting them up is so important. So.
And when you think about it, Monroe County specifically and New York State in general we're rich with services.
Yeah.
And even more specific, just Webster, because Webster seems to be popping up with all these new little things that hopefully other towns will jump on board with. Even just that special needs resource fair that you run, Jenny, in April, it's phenomenal. Like, the phenomenal resources we have, we just got to get parents to access them.
Yeah.
And know and love them and find each other. Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned, Beth, was that people don't know about Challenger. What are some of the sports that you do with Challenger, and what are some of the social events that you do?
So the sports that we do, they're year-round. Right now, we're in basketball. We're going to move to, that wraps up this month, and then we take December off because it's just too crazy for anybody to try to do anything, and then we'll move into bowling for a couple of months, and that's, I mean, you call it, it is a sport. However, it is very social. The biggest thing that we have is matching the right kids up with the right friends and making sure the ones who don't get along so well aren't on lanes next to each other. It's a whole thing. But they come and they love it and they have fun, and the bowling alley is fully accessible. We get the whole downstairs. They've got ramps, they've got bumpers. And so some of our kiddos do still need help, but it kind of ends up being like a family thing. And then some of them can come and do it more independently. And that gives parents and caregivers a break for a couple of hours where the kids are safe and having fun, and the parents can just talk and chat. And that kind of goes back to that magic of Challenger, where parents get to talk about stuff. 9 times out of 10, it's going to start with, oh, hey, your kiddo, we had the specialist visit, and this, that, and the other. Like, they just get to talking about all of those things that are part of building a village.
Bowling, I will speak personally, bowling is the most social.
It is, yes.
It's like, it's the best way to meet parents and talk
Yeah.
about things, because you could buy nachos and beer, too.
Yeah, it's
It
great.
always
It's
helps.
fantastic. And then in the spring, we'll move to
Am I
soccer.
lying?
No, it's
No,
great.
right.
In the spring, we'll move to soccer, and we'll get baseball started. We just started lacrosse, so we're going to do spring and fall with that. We've got some amazing volunteers there. We also do flag football and kickball. Once baseball ends, we do kickball for the younger ones. And then, I feel like I'm forgetting.
Soccer?
Yeah, soccer.
Oh, you said that?
Yeah. So we're always looking to grow that. And then some of the social events that we do, the Halloween party and the Valentine's Day dance or prom that we do. We also do special events throughout the year. Like, we'll participate in the Little League World Series. They'll host Challenger teams from around the area at, it's not Frontier Field, what is it now? Innovative Field?
Innovative Field.
Thank you. They'll host that. So that's kind of a special event with baseball. Every summer we do Heroes Helping Heroes, where we invite first responders to come to the field. And we just create fun things. We have like a magic person, a DJ, things like that. We try to host things at the field too. I know you didn't ask this, but I'm just going to say it anyways. The community outreach, right? Like the stuff that we do with you guys and SEPTA, and we're trying to get one going in the spring with Best Buddies to use the field, and so that parents know not just about us in the field, but that there's all of these other support systems in this network, this village that we're talking about. So I love those events too.
So with Best Buddies, you do match up people. How do you do that? And like what does that look like for
Yeah.
the individuals? And because I know you've been talking about the parents a lot, but like the programs and what type of events do you do or things like that?
So K through 5, it's just a general smorgasbord of children. So no one's really matched in like a friendship. So they do events together once a month, sometimes twice a month. It's set up like a club, like a typical club at school. Once they hit middle school, then we do one-to-one matches. So what they do is they come to the club activity once a month, and the advisor and Best Buddies staff and a chapter president, so a student that's running the organization, will start to pair kids up. The pairings usually are based on, they're kind of already doing something together at a table, and it seems to be working really well. Once they're connected in the system, they are able to connect outside of school. So that's where you get the parent involvement in, especially at middle school and high school. Once you get into college, it's obviously very different. A lot of our colleges in the area have college-based experiences, but those experiences are very small. 10 kids in the program, 15 kids in the program annually are allowed in. So those kids are already on campus, but they're still kind of matched that way as well. As you move into Citizens, which is our 18 and over program, there's a whole questionnaire that you fill out of things that you're interested in, because it's not as organic of meeting unless we do once a month events, but like if you can't go to those events, you're not meeting anybody, and that's not fun. So everyone in the citizens list is invited. We just did bowling a couple weeks ago. Bowling's a theme. We did it at Radio Social, so it's a social atmosphere. You're in an environment where you would typically be as an 18 and older person. And we kind of watch who's interacting. We watch, and then we go back to their matching sheets. Do they interact well? And then the guidelines for anyone that's matched in a one-to-one friendship is that they are speaking once a week outside of this organized chaos, and that they're spending time alone together in that one-to-one friendship once a month. And so the reason we do one-to-one friendships at Best Buddies is because if you have 3 people, someone's always left out. That's just the way it is. It's nothing against anyone that's in a 3 friendship. It's just, there's always going to be a gap. And I know some people probably know that. So, and again, like I have 2 children at home, so I only can focus on one of you at one time. Like I kind, and so that's where that comes from. But the biggest thing for us is building the family network. Is you might have one buddy in Best Buddies, but you have a million other friends that you're hanging out with at those functions. So you have a buddy, but then you also have a community of people that you're hanging out with. The coolest thing that we do as an event for Best Buddies is we send our kids away to a conference for 3 days with us in Indiana, which sounds crazy, but there's 3,000 children. It's wonderful. But they build bonds together as they travel across the country together. So they may go to different high schools, they may go to different colleges, but they come back so unified. So now they're connecting kids to different schools and different activities. And so the one-to-one friendships is a big part of what we do. It's our biggest program, but it doesn't limit that child or that family to just that one friend. But it is, I've seen families go through our programs and be matched when they're very young. And once they are in high school, they're still matched and families are still spending time together. The moms are out doing something together. They're going shopping together. And that for me is like the biggest thing. Like so many parents are like, I didn't have friends at my kid's school because I'm so concerned about taking them to therapies, or they're having a behavior. I have to pull them out. I can't come to the Halloween party because my kiddo can't handle the Halloween party. Like there's so many families that don't have any connections to anyone else. And now they do. Now they have at least one. We do bigger events throughout the year. Where families can also meet as well. But it really is kind of that connection within the schools that we love for families on the younger end. Once they get to college, they're kind of, college is fun.
Can you speak on, pretend I'm sitting there?
Yeah.
The difference between TIES programs
Yep.
and Best Buddies?
Yep. So kind of back to Brittany's question. TIES is a very similar program to Best Buddies. And many districts do have it. From my understanding, it's very expensive for a district. Very thousands, I think, is what I've heard that it costs the district. And a student that signs up for TIES that does not have a disability is given credit for being involved with a student that does have disabilities. So let's say your kiddo has a disability, they want to try out for the ski club. They need support to try out for that ski club. So a TIES participant will come in and work with them while they're at the ski club to make sure that they can participate. That doesn't generally, and it does sometimes, I don't want to say that it doesn't always, but that's not building a genuine relationship, because one person is there to support and help the other person. Nothing wrong with that. But if we're trying to build a community of acceptance and inclusion, you coming to help me really is not inclusion. It's almost like a support staff, a ComHab, or a respite worker, in my opinion.
It's a different dynamic.
It's a very different dynamic. Kids that are going to TIES are fabulous kids. Most of the kids that are in TIES are in Best Buddies. It's very back and forth. We have some districts that.
Some districts have both.
Some districts have both, and some districts run both kind of simultaneously. We don't tell a lot of people that, but they run very parallel. The problem becomes, generally that I have seen, is that students are not doing it for the best intentions. They need the volunteer hours for college. It looks good on a resume. I've seen it happen. Participants in Best Buddies get we do not give any volunteer. You are here because you want to hang out with new people. We're not giving you nothing. Sorry about it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, you get nothing. I mean, you might get a nice letter from me that says you were a good person, but I'm not giving you hours. Sorry. You get a friend. You get to be a good human. Like, sorry, like you. And listen, none of my children have ever asked me in 8 years. No one has ever asked me for volunteer hours. Do I give you volunteer experiences outside of being a friend to somebody? Of course, I'll give you. You can come organize my office right now. I'll give you all the hours you want. But I'm not gonna give you hours to be nice to your classmate or to be inclusive of your classmate, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
It is hard, and that's one of those things where it's hard to kind of explain to a district the difference if they're not able to see the difference, if that makes sense.
Stacia, kind of the same question that I asked Beth. I know you're kind of wearing a couple of hats today for Help with Feeding and for Parenting Village, but can you talk a little bit about what the challenges are that you see coming into your private practice in terms of feeding? And I know it's a broad range, but just can you talk a little bit about that and then the services that you offer, and then a little bit about Parenting Village and some of the supports that they offer the community, and then certainly the Family Fest?
Yeah, so a lot of the challenges that I see with families coming in for feeding support is just really early, feeding difficulties in the first few months of life and with the transition to solids. And what I love about feeding is that it is a window into overall development. So some of that is why I love to kind of stay in touch with families. And even if things get better with feeding, I always try to help them understand that, like, I'm here to ask questions. If you have questions about development, please reach out and just be very, I think, and that's the difference with like private practices, being able to form that relationship and keep an open door. And it, and for me, that's, I'm not billable like a lawyer, so if, I email you, I'm not going to charge you $30 for, 2 minutes or whatever, but just that's my hope, is that I'm a developmental person that people can then come to and ask those questions and be validated and be given direction. So there's a lot, things have really changed with young families and the lack of childcare and people's decisions about working from home while taking care of young children and what that looks like. And so, a lot of what I'm also helping with is parents navigating parenthood and how to be a parent. And that's when things are going well, and it's also when things are really hard. So that's a lot of what I see. And then in our small group play groups, we see it's the same thing. It's parents just not knowing how to navigate the millions and millions of miles of information on Instagram and TikTok and what's real and what's not. And so just really having, knowing your source and asking the right people the right questions, so helping them navigate that. And I think one of the things I want to say too about, right now there is such a shortage of services, especially in the world of like speech therapy. Kids are waiting for so long for services through EI. And there are a lot of private practices popping up, and which is great if you have resources, right? That's always the tricky thing. But if, parents are out there looking, what I would say is, as these private practices are popping up, make sure you are doing your research and looking for someone who has a specialty in the thing that you want. Because as a speech pathologist, there is a laundry list of things that I can treat and I can work on with you and your child. But when you're, going out of your way to add an additional service and pay for it possibly out of your pocket, you really want to make sure you find the right person. And again, there are some really amazing therapists and I think a lot of us are trying to fill the gaps. Like, working with families privately, I get to do it my way and be the therapist that I want to be. And spend ample amount of time with families. And so there are a lot of therapists that are doing the same and have really wonderful, backgrounds in sensory processing. And, and that doesn't mean that you're going to be going to this OT for months on end. It's that you're going to get trained in the thing that you need for your child, and then you can be able to do it. So I think at the end of the day, we're just, as providers who have been in the other systems, we're trying to grow the depth of what's available and match people with what they need. So,
and that's a huge part of growing your village too, is asking other parents and asking a provider you already have
Yes.
about another one.
Yeah.
Or Stacia would never accept a child when she knows there's somebody better.
Right.
These providers are very passionate about what they do, and they know who the right person is. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid to ask
yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
I'll give a perfect example. I texted Stacia and Kristen about services for my son, and they both referred me to somebody else. And she's freaking fantastic. She's wonderful. Would they have done a great job? Yeah, but they knew there was somebody better. So
Yeah.
your village will tell you.
Yeah. And I think that's, having the right people and the right, just the people that you can trust to kind of guide you in the right direction when it's maybe not them. So I think, that's something big that I've seen. And that's where, again, I want to say, like, all of these things are specialties. Working with feeding with a child with autism, who may be nonverbal, is very different than working with a toddler who's transitioning to solids. Like, there are so many different ways to go about it, and I think you just need to be careful about who you're reaching out to so that you are using your resources well. And so I think it's so great with all these private providers who can fill the gaps. And I think there's just gonna be more coming because people are, everyone's pivoting and shifting to different service provision. And it can be really powerful. So,
You commented on parents needing parenting
yeah.
advice, or why? Why is that happening? What do you think? What do you
Well-
think is changing with our new parents?
I think in general I think COVID boosted it, and then now we're kind of stuck in this next phase of society. I think all the technology has really been disruptive to, growing babies' brains and toddlers, and that, we're all so busy, and so there's just this general, like, looking on the internet and looking at social media to get activities and things that you're supposed to be doing with your kids when really you're just supposed to be being on the ground and connecting with them. And so, it's like, what's the next best thing? And again, they're all well-intentioned, but the whole, like, social connection piece is so lost at so many levels. And I think in general, for even us as adults, like, we're all so dysregulated and have so much information coming at us, and then we're growing these little babies that are just the same way. And so I see a lot of families who have very, like, complex situations and so much stress, and then they have this baby who's, like, screaming and crying constantly and can't feed, and I'm, like, seeing what's happening and thinking, okay, we're, like, in general, right, there isn't childcare, and it's so expensive, and everyone's, like, pushed to make decisions that are not necessarily the best because there isn't a lot of value on supporting young families and children and those connections. So they're just struggling with, like, how to feed their child the best, and they're following all these things, but they don't actually know what's really important. And so that's what we're always talking about. Like, we're talking about presence over productivity in our groups. We're talking about making time to care for yourself and play with your children, but being available when you say you're available, and and when you're going to do something else, letting your child know, I'm going to go finish doing the dishes or checking my email, I'll be right back. And so just really some really important, like, just basic theories that parents are, nobody
Can you
teaches
say
it.
that again? What over productivity?
Presence.
Presence over
pro-
productivity.
So a lot of these, with this increase in children on the spectrum, and there's so many social emotional issues happening, and, like, again, I really feel like so much is, in that first 3 years, as their brains are growing so tremendously, things are lost. And so there's just not as much connection. So we're really trying to foster that in general. And I foster that all the time in feeding work, because so much of the time, the first thing to go is the social connection, because the parent and the baby are both losing their minds. And so that's, like, my focus, is bringing them back to that connection. And I think that's, like, kind of flowing into the whole parenting village piece is, it's kind of been like we've been trying out all these things over the past couple of years and trying to figure out what parents need, and the things that have stuck, I think, really are, like, these short snippets of, like, education on specific topics, the connection events, really, like, just trying to offer something. The Family Fest was hugely successful over the summer. That was at a park in Penfield, and really, it's just a free day for families to come out, and the weather was beautiful, and there were all these vendors, and we had bounce houses and food trucks, and everyone, as they were walking in, and I was like a greeter, they just kept saying, oh my gosh, we're so thankful for it, that you did this. And so just events that are family friendly, where you can be outside around other people, I think people need the connection again. And so we're kind of, as Parenting Village, trying to figure out, what does that truly look like? How do we make it accessible? What are people's priorities and values? And so, we're just kind of pivoting, and, like, we've tried some online virtual, like, circles that, just didn't really stick. And so we're kind of at this point where we're like looking to find, you know, what people need. And so if anybody has ideas, you know, or want to volunteer, you know, for everything from young children up to older children. And we sometimes feel like that school age bracket and older is kind of the pocket that feels like it doesn't have as much support, because there's a lot more support for some of the younger stuff. So just, you know, trying to think outside the box and ask each other, what can we do to make this better? How can we support social connection in a very intentional way? So kind of in flux.
Do you see that social connection between parents has been negatively impacted from COVID? Like,
Yeah.
did you work with Parenting Village pre-COVID and post-COVID? Or have you heard, like, the trajectory changing? Because I feel like our whole society is less social.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
less social connection with, like,
Yeah.
even getting my Starbucks. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go to the drive-thru so I don't have to look at someone
Yeah.
in the face.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to look them in the eye.
Yeah.
It's because you're just not used to it.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I'm standing in line for coffee really close to someone because I crave that connection and I haven't had it in so long. So it has changed.
Yeah. I think what I'm noticing mostly is that parents are struggling to like put themselves out there, and I understand that. And it's like we got so, I don't know, it was so disruptive. And even in our like our little groups that we do, like one of the moms said she, you know, decided after all her sons almost one, she decided to stay at home. She was able to do that, and she's leaving a job that she's had for 13 years. And she's just like, but I'm so worried about trying to meet other people, like other stay-at-home parents. And so it's like a big anxiety. So like the things that were already there. And so if that's how we're feeling as grown-ups, I'm
Correct.
wondering how these kids are feeling. And we all get so, you know, sucked into our little bubbles, and there's so much technological connection that we think actually takes place of real connection, you know. And so I think that it's just, it's impacted everyone. And so that's kind of the thing with Parenting Village that we're trying to figure out is how to make it enjoyable for everyone and make it easy and not awkward. But parents, you know, are so, I think, burnt out of like Zooming, you know, after such a long period of time that, you know, I just think that people are not going to want to show up randomly for, you know, a support circle
Correct.
to like be on a call with strangers and pour their hearts out. Like, I just think that that's just not the way of the world. So we just have to be creative and meet people where they are. So we're just trying to figure that all out. It's just different.
Whitney, you mentioned that you have to reach out to parents of kids who don't have special needs and try to bridge that gap because they don't understand. And I feel like that's something that I'm kind of blind to, because even like my sister and her kids, they don't have special needs, but they're around my kids so
Oh,
much
girl,
that
I
like,
could celebrate this all
you
day.
know, we show up and I'm just like, hey, kids, like Arabella started having seizures. If that happens, come get me. Here's the meds. Here's what you do. And they're like, cool. And they go play and they're done. It's, you know, we don't think about it, but I'm just wondering for you, when you work on that kind of thing, like what do you find to be successful with those sort of?
So parents
divisions?
are, to your point, parents are very resilient, and I think that they will figure it out. If I see my kid playing with someone and they're happy, no matter my social anxiety, because I have severe, I will not look you in the eye if I don't have to, I'm gonna move on today. There's a a girl in my son's class right now, he's obsessed with her, talks about her all the time. And I have to talk to his parents. He wants to see her, he wants to spend time with her. I have to be able to bridge that gap. Personally, with two children that have complex needs, it is so difficult to leave the house. It is, it takes everything. Wegmans, Target, Walmart, going to our friend's house. It is a mental journey that I'm gonna be on. Like, I don't know how we're gonna act, I don't know who's gonna have a behavior, I don't know what's gonna happen. It is so dysregulating that there are times we will not leave the house. There are birthday parties we will not go to. There are tours, there are Diet Cokes I'm not getting at Target. There are things that are not happening. Perfect example. Walmart had to go the other day to get a toothbrush. Stupid behavior with two children. I don't know what I was thinking. One son wanted a toy. I said no. Dysregulation happens. And I said, well, we're just going to finish what I'm doing here and we're going to walk out of the store. Are you screaming and kicking in the cart? Sure are. I'm going to go about my business. And that's anybody with a kid. That's not just a kid with a disability. That's anybody with a kid. And this woman stopped me outside because I kept saying to him, we're not going to talk about this anymore. Like, it's over. And she's like, you were so calm and you were so lovely. She goes, you're doing a good job.
Aw.
And listen, that's fine, great. But in my brain, I was like, I am going to scream. Someone needs to help, someone needs to help me.
Yeah.
And I got.
Or hug you.
I got home and I called 2 people. I'm like, I need to tell you what just happened and I need to cry for 5 minutes. And then do you have to say anything else to me? I'm gonna hang up, I'm gonna talk to you later. So just having people in your circle, whether they're a parent or not, that are safe people, bridges so many mental gaps that we have. Also just knowing your kid, you're dysregulated, you're crying because you're either hungry or whatever it is. I'm not taking you into a social setting where you're gonna be uncomfortable and dysregulated
failure.
and then affecting everyone else's viewpoint of what you're doing. There have been so many birthday parties, and it's my own fault. I take you to too many things, I do too many things with you, it's my fault. You gotta set your kids up for success. And if your villages know, hey, you know what, Louis is having a rough day today. It ain't happening. I don't care what it is. It ain't going down today. And people that know us are supportive and okay, hear ya, talk to you later. And that's the biggest thing too, is just knowing, educating families, educating friends, educating providers. This might happen, whether it's a seizure or a meltdown. How are we gonna work this out the best way possible? And how am I gonna feel as a parent that I'm not gonna be stigmatized, oh, Lindsay can't come because her kids are having meltdowns? No, my kid's dysregulated, as we all are. And so I'm making the choice for my son and for me that it is not the case that we need to get increasingly upset and increasingly anxious, and we're gonna stay home. Now, am I gonna have to deal with this deregulation probably an hour longer? Sure. But it's in the safety of my home. And I can go in the bathroom and scream, or I can sit on the floor and cry for 5 minutes, and it's not gonna be a scene. So I think that's the biggest thing. So when parents go to these events, and they have those people that are there, and little Charlie is having some sort of, triggered episode, whatever we wanna call it, or just being themselves, that parent can look to the other parent and be like, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? Can we just talk? And let that happen. And a lot of times, and I will tell you this, and I say this all the time, and one day it's gonna come back and bite me. I have never, in any Best Buddies thing, seen a kid dysregulated. I've never seen a behavior. And I'm talking about kids that are biting at kids, punching, kicking, huge behaviors, seizure episodes. I've never seen a kid dysregulated at Best Buddies. Not an event, not a chapter meeting, not a social setting, nothing. Traveling for 4 days, you see a seizure here and there, but never have I seen a kid dysregulated. I don't know.
Social connection builds
They're
safety, right?
safe.
That's what it
They're
is.
safe. They're not
Yeah.
having to feel uncomfortable. I can tell you right
Yeah.
now, again, I keep talking about my kids, but my oldest one, I went to the Halloween party and there was a little boy that was picking on him. Put it right out. I saw it. And you could see his body shut down. So he went and stood by his friends that he was comfortable with. He's 4. It starts so young. They need to have their safe people.
Yeah.
And if you can identify the safe person and give them more opportunities to spend time with that safe person, then they feel safer in multiple different things. As they get into high
Parents
school.
need
I was
safe
gonna
people
say.
Listen, I got a whole
Parents
list
need safe
of
people
them.
too.
But to your
Yeah.
point, if
Yeah,
I
we're
know,
all like that.
perfect example, I know this little girl's a safe person for my son, I'm gonna reach out to that mom. We do gymnastics together. They do gymnastics together. And we sit and talk while they do gymnastics. Nastics, as it's called by my son, but, I mean, again, I wouldn't have reached out to her if I didn't know that my son was connected to her.
Yeah. that
'Cause I
safe
don't wanna
space
do
is
it.
Huge. I get that all
I
the
don't
time
wanna
in the field. Parents are like, oh, my kiddos, they're just not feeling like playing again, we're gonna go home early or whatever, and they check in with me. I'm like, you don't have to tell me, you guys
Yeah,
can
bye.
just go. There's no checking in, there's no obligation at all. It's, we're here, we're accepting, or the opposite, they're having a meltdown there in the outfield screaming. We're all nobody,
Carry on.
nobody bats an eye. Cool, we're gonna keep playing baseball.
Live your life.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and that's huge for parents too that are off the field, knowing that their kiddo's safe and okay. That safe space is really huge. Yeah.
I do want to say that I think we're so fortunate to have all these organizations that offer these opportunities for parents and kids. And I'm a little concerned about the future just because I know all of my special needs world, I was introduced to them by providers in early intervention. And now that these kids aren't always getting those providers or are getting providers that are not as experienced with the mental health piece and the support of parents' needs piece. I want you to reach out to, I want you to go to Family Fest at Parenting Village.
I'll say Festival of Inclusion.
Contact Best Buddies, get with Challenger, get on the Parents Helping Parents Facebook, go to the play dates, go to all the events, you might not get these villages handed to you. You have to come out and reach out for them. It's not as easy nowadays. Like, I feel like it was spoon-fed to me in a very slow and gentle way. And I even had a hard time accepting that my daughter had special needs. And now that I think about it, I'm like, the power of denial. Holy cow, like what the?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting in a music group at Hochstein crying my eyes out because I, for the first time, was like, oh, these are her peers. Okay. Like, I didn't know. Because you're home in your bubble.
Yeah.
And a lot of these young families who are working from home and taking care of their kids, not really sure if their kid is delayed, they're not getting the providers coming into their home, telling them and pointing them in the right directions. It's concerning. So
Well,
please come out, reach out to us.
Going back to what Stacia says, like, we may not have the answers for you. So I can't tell you the amount of times that a family has come to me with their concerns. And I'm like, we don't have the capacity to do that for you, but here are some organizations that work really well in that department, whether it be.
If we don't know the answer, we know who
We will
does.
give you those
Yeah.
answers, but I think a piece of that is, in nonprofit world, it changes so much, the people change so much. When you have people like a Sarah Milko, who's been running Autism Up for, I don't even know how long, or even me, who's been in Best Buddies for as long as I have, we have the resources. When you get new people in those positions and in nonprofits, because it's such a ever-changing environment, you lose some of that. So making sure you have connections within those organizations with other families that say, okay, this is what's going on, how can I do that? And kind of going off Family Fest, we do Festival of Inclusion in March with the Golisano Foundation, and their reach is very different than our reach. So if I don't know something, I'm sure the foundation has somebody that you could reach out to. So there's a million different resources, and we are really blessed in this area. And so, to your point, like, just ask. That's the biggest thing, just ask the question.
So it's almost 12 o'clock, and I always like to ask at the end, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Did you guys have any, I mean, no, unless there's any questions from you guys.
Do you have any like personal success stories that you like to share? I know you've shared some that are kind of like
Yeah.
overarching, but like family success stories or like people that you've interacted with that's an individual success story that you'd like to share?
Mine is a little non-conventional and not really related to Challenger, but I'll go out on a bridge here. So when I was a Girl Scout leader, one of my favorite stories is one of my girls. She was a little bit socially, didn't want to engage, didn't want to stand behind the cookie booth, she just didn't want to do things. We took her to camp. And as far as I know, she didn't have any really diverse abilities. Physically, she was fine. She was great within the troop, but that was definitely her safe space. So at camp, it's a much different scenario, and we had her try something new. We asked her to, and she was very hesitant. She waited to get into the canoe. This is what we were asking her to do, is just
Absolutely not.
get in a canoe, go out in the water, and she did not want to do it. And we said, okay, you don't have to, and there were a couple of other adults that were, trying to push her. I'm like, no, if she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to, give her time. And then she did. She tried it. And she got out there in the boat, and she turns around like they're halfway out in the lake, and I was internally panicking. I'm like, what do you mean we're putting 10-year-olds in a boat with no supervision? Like, are you kidding me? Like, but then my older ones were okay, and I'm like, okay, they're okay, they're all right, they have life jackets on. Well, then this little girl got in the boat, and she's out in the middle of the lake, and she turns around, she's like, Miss Beth, I'm doing it. And like, it just felt so incredible. And that's the feeling I get at Challenger all the time, where people try new things. Like one of our players, super into baseball, goes to all the local baseball stuff. He loves coming to play as an adult. And he didn't want to try lacrosse, and his parents told him, no, I think you should try it, it'll be fun, and that trying new things. So he made some new friends, and now he'll tell you that lacrosse is second only to baseball, which is a big, big deal for him, big deal. So I love seeing them try new things, and I think that's probably true, some of that maybe I'm not even seeing or hearing about at Challenger. So that part makes me so happy. Yeah.
We've had kids that have been through our programs in high school that continue through college and whatnot, but we recently just had a kiddo that I started with 8 years ago, met her in high school, she did the program in high school, did it in college, graduated college, and now she's an advisor for the program. And so
Yeah,
to see that, like,
you're shaping people.
I literally, like,
Yeah.
I instilled some good in you.
Yeah.
And you carried it through with you, and you kept with it, and she also has a buddy in our adult program. So she's really kind of come through the whole system with us, and so that was really cool to see, because I hadn't seen it yet. I mean, we definitely have kids that go high school, college, and then adulthood, but I've never seen them take on an advisor role, so that was pretty cool.
So much pressure. I think the biggest and best transformations that I've witnessed are really with the parents most recently, and feeling so sometimes a little like sad about how things are a little off base. And so, especially in these groups, we've been doing them for about over a year. And so some of the families have stayed and kind of like followed the groups as the babies have gotten older, and creating and I think it's like what you're saying, just helping people to know that they can just take the first step. And I have to tell myself that too. Just it's like with yoga, just get on your mat, do the first thing. And so for parents who are wondering, just reach out once or go to one thing, just try it out. And I feel like being able to foster that and, start with those connections early on, and to see parents grow and just, say that the rose of their week is that they just celebrated their child's 1-year-old birthday and they have so much joy. So really reaching back into those early connections and boosting all of that. I think watching parents grow, whether their child has diverse abilities or not, is just amazing.
I think the biggest success story for Parents Helping Parents as an organization in general, and personally as a parent, is the connections that we've made, the collaborations that we've formed. Because I can confidently say, I don't know everything, but I know somebody that does. And these guys are my boos forever. I know that they know somebody. The parents that come, I am confident that I can help you. I know that I can, and I will. If you ask for help, I'm here for you. So that is the biggest success, is growing this village and then the village of all of our parents together.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you, Beth, Lindsay, Stasia, and Kim, for this wonderful panel presentation. You guys were just amazing, and you could tell that, there's a lot of chemistry between you all. You are very good friends, and I can tell the village is real. So thank you so much. As a reminder, December 4th is our final panel of this year, and are starting our new one in January. December 4th is alternative therapies. So we have a equine therapist, a music therapist, a chiropractor, and a play therapist coming. So, and in January, we're going to do a second panel of alternative therapies. So there is a lot of alternative therapies out there. So please come, and we hope to see you again in December and in the upcoming year. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.